Welcome back to the channel, and today we're taking a look at the Kunwu Knives Geezer. This is a slip joint, and what kind of attracted me about this one is the slim nature and the fact that I know Kunwu does a good job with their heat treating, and I figured this would be a nice slicey knife, being this is a slip joint. So you do have a clip point blade. It is a low tip clip point, so it's still going to be a very versatile blade shape. Easily get the tip onto things if you need to. In-hand cuts are going to be very easy because you don't have a crazy swoopy belly there, and you have enough belly to make cuts on a flat cutting surface. So it's going to be good at just about everything. This particular one has a satin finish. You have fullers on both sides that you can use as a pull. As you can see here, it's very easy to pinch open. That's one thing that I really look for in my slip joints if I'm going to actually carry them. You have a nice top swedge that goes down to that tip to give you a nice needle-like tip there. You're not going to really want to do any piercing, but if you had to do some light piercing, you could keep your fingers like that to get into something. You have some jimping here, which is nice and effective, and then you also have some jimping down here, so if you're choked up, you're pretty locked in, and it gives you a little bit extra safety. And basically, when it comes to a slip joint or any knife that's non-locking, I always treat them like it's a friction folder. If you treat every knife like it has no lock, then you're going to be a-okay when it comes to cutting things. You do have a nice sharpening tool that you can have tons of sharpening light. You can see where my fingernail is right there. That's where that plunge line comes down. So they did a great job on this one. And it's a medium size, or when it comes to a slip joint, I call it a large slip joint, coming in at 7.36 inches long with a 3.22 inch blade of Elmax Steel, hardened to 60 to 62 HRC, right where you want Elmax to be, and that's why I love Kunwu knives. He is a knife enthusiast himself, and he likes to have his blade steels at a performance range, and that is excellent. And like I said earlier, being that this is a slip joint, you have nice and thin blade stock coming in at 0.08. That is outstanding. That, and paired with a high flat grind that comes down to around 16 thousandths behind the edge. So this thing's going to be a super slicer. Let's find out. Knife came with a good edge out of box, and just as I expected, that thin blade stock is so slicey, not to mention the thin edge geometry. This thing is slicing very well, and I expect it to keep slicing this well. I'm glad that it has that low tip on that clip point, so the belly is not too abrupt, and it should be good at just about everything. Of course, we'll find out, but if I had to take a guess, I think it will. Now we test the ergos, and it is a thinner handle, so you wouldn't probably want to do this for a long period of time, but you could easily make fine curls. I'm mainly seeing if there's any hot spots anywhere. For me, it was pretty darn comfortable, as comfortable as flat scales can be, and I'm able to get a lot of force into the wood. That jimping up top allows me to choke up, and I still feel rather safe up there, and as long as you're doing things the way you should be, you shouldn't have to worry about, that thing being the knife being a slip joint. Treat it like a friction folder. But as you see here, it is making sharp work of the 1/2-inch sisal rope, mainly push cutting. That belly is the perfect amount to be able to cut easily on a flat cutting surface, and it's doing a phenomenal job with it. We are comfortable in that pinch grip. It is thinner, so you're not going to want to do any of this stuff for a long period of time, but definitely can do it rather well. We get through 130 cuts with this one before we run out of the piece I'm cutting. I'm not judging for edge retention. I'm just making sure there's nothing crazy that goes on with the apex of this knife. Maybe get dull rather quick, or any kind of chipping or anything while I'm doing these tests. So it did great. Still felt like it had a good edge once I'm done with this. Of course, we'll find out toward the last portion of this testing. And so far, so good. I can always tell whenever it has thin edge geometry by the way it's slicing. That's another reason why I do these tests, to see how they're going to perform on everyday tasks. And being you got that low tip clip point, you can easily get the tip onto the cutting board to do drag cuts, and still enough belly to make all this very easy and enjoyable to do. You can see I'm putting my finger every now and again on that top portion of the spine. I'm cutting down, so it doesn't really matter. You wouldn't want to do that if you're holding it in hand or anything, but that would be silly anyway. But excellent job. I'm always satisfied with the way Kunwu knives perform, especially after you sharpen them. All right, let's check that edge out. That was my fault. Might have a few little small hang-ups, but nothing I couldn't strop out. This one was very, very enjoyable to do the testing with. It performs so good out of box. I love seeing that. There's nothing worse whenever I start doing testing and it either has a subpar edge or an over-polished edge and it just doesn't want to bite into any of the material, but that wasn't the case with the Kunwu Geezer. If this particular variation isn't your thing, if you don't like this type of carbon fiber, there's also one with a solid regular carbon fiber, just a regular standard weave. You can get it also with the green like this, or one of my favorites, you can get it in tie scales with the copper foiled, or what is it, bronze foiled carbon fiber inlay. Looks beautiful. Those are just a little bit more expensive than these are. This particular version is currently on sale for $189, and I think the titanium one's like $208 maybe. So we'll talk about the walk and talk. I'm not good at rating them or anything, but you do have a nice half stop, and it's not at the 90-degree angle. It's about, I don't know, whatever you call that. But I like that because whenever if I push it down, it keeps it away from my hand. If it's at 90 degrees, it's going to be very close to getting me there. And then I love the sounds this makes when it closes. I think it has a lot to do with how they have the little back portion set up on the back spring and the carbon fiber, but just listen. I especially like the sound whenever I go from here to the half stop. It is a very smooth motion because it is riding on washers. And it's not the strongest pull, or, you know, it doesn't have the strongest walk and talk, but in my opinion, it's perfectly acceptable. I don't like them to be super strong because then it becomes an issue with me being able to open them. So I'd say, I don't really know what I could compare it to. It's definitely better than a Benchmade proper and the Benchmade slip joints, but I don't know what else to compare it to. Take a look at the handle area. I like how this handle flares out. It really fills out the hand nicely. You have chamfers going all the way around the scale, so you don't have any sharp spots where you don't want them to be. This carbon fiber doesn't have any voids that I see. Nicely done there. Your hardware, you have a Torx T8 for the pivot. Unfortunately, they went with T6 for the body screws, and the thing I like about this one is it has a pocket clip. Not to mention a deep carry pocket clip that functions nicely. It has perfect spring to it, and it is reversible. You even have the plate to cover up the opposite side. You have a little pommel here on the end that's chamfered, and you also have a lanyard hole if you decide to do so. You got your back spring here that is flush with the scales, and it's nicely done. This thing felt really, really good in hand. Like I said, this flare out right here allows me to grip it tighter. I can choke up if I need to do some fine detail work. And at no point did I feel like this thing was going to come closed on my hand because I respect it as a slip joint. Because this one's in carbon fiber, it's probably going to be lighter than the titanium scale version, making this one an absolute featherweight at 68.5 grams or 2.41 ounces. That is awesome. And as you can see here, it's a little bit shorter than the Kunwu Pulsar, and it's a little bit longer than the Ontario Rat Model 2. It's also larger than the Spyderco Para 3 and the Civivi Elementum, and it's about identical in size to Civivi Ortus, and it's bigger than the Rosecraft Blades Nola Chucky, and is just a hair longer than the Jack Wolf Knives After Hours Jack. Now, for my nitpicks and complaints, the only thing I could really be nitpicky about is maybe T8 hardware throughout would have been nice. But other than that, I absolutely love it. I love how slicey it is. I love the versatility of this low tip clip point. I like the overall aesthetics of it. And I don't mind the softer pull on this one. I think it's more than acceptable. And I love the sounds it makes for sure. My wife definitely gives me a stank eye when I'm opening and closing this one. And the pull's not overly strong, so I did at one point, if you want it to be one-handed opening, I did have a quick stud hooked to this, and I was able to open it. It is a little bit difficult just because it does have a strong enough spring to where it's not super easy. But if you want it to be one hand, you could definitely do so. The fact that it has a pocket clip will make it go in the pocket more often. When I have no pocket clip and I have to carry it in a slip, I tend to not carry those as often because I don't like things just dangling around in my pockets. So like I said, if you're interested in this one or any of the other versions, I will have it linked down below. If you have any questions in particular, feel free to ask me down in the comments and I'll do my best to get to you. And I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day. I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.